As I mentioned yesterday, in hopes to provide a little connectedness and encouragement for our folks at Clemson Presbyterian during this time of social distancing, I want to continue to regularly provide some devotions in the Psalms. And today I want to begin in Psalm 1. Psalm 1 may have been composed as somewhat of an introduction to the entire Psalter, and it contains much of the language of wisdom literature throughout Scripture. It has the feel of Proverbs in poetry. The author writes somewhat in the vein of Evangelist in John Bunyan's classic, Pilgrim's Progress. Evangelist tells Christian that there are only two paths in life, one which leads to the celestial city, the other to the city of destruction. And so he urges Christian to remain on the path. He warns him against worldly wise men who would seek to allure him and lead him astray by his godless counsel. And so now listen to Psalm 1 with that in mind. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yield its fruit in season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. The psalm begins with echoes of Jesus' teaching in the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed is the man, and the pathway to that blessing is clear throughout this psalm. The psalmist portrays only two paths, only two people, and only two distinct destinies. And he challenges the reader in this psalm to stay on the path of righteousness. Blessed is the man who does not digress into the ways of the world by walking or standing or sitting in their counsel. That is, by accommodating to a worldly worldview or to accommodate to a godless way of life. But here's the first contrast. The believer is called to find his or her delight elsewhere, not in the ways of the world, but in the law of the Lord, in his paths, in his righteousness. And therefore, one of our greatest needs is for God's Spirit to cause our love for him to exceed our love for the world. In the words of Thomas Chalmers, we need to experience more fully the expulsive power of a new affection. John Calvin spoke of our need to be watered by divine grace in order for this to take place. And this God provides through the ministry of his word. As we prayerfully meditate upon his word day and night, we're strengthened in the inner person. As we drink deeply of the wells of salvation, fruitfulness of life can be enjoyed even in the midst of some of the greatest challenges and droughts in life. But there's a second contrast. It's found in verse 4. But the wicked are not so. Rather, they are like the chaff that the wind blows away. I'm a borderline coffee snob, and I roast my own coffee. And after each roasting, there is chaff left over. The chaff is the very thin skin left from the roasted coffee bean. And I can take that chaff. It is so thin and so light, it is effortless to simply blow away. And the psalmist reminds us such is the life of those who follow the ways of the world. And that's why John in his first epistle challenges us and reminds us of this reality of Psalm 1 when he says, do not love the world or the things in the world. For the things of the world, the desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, and the pride of life is not from the Father, but from the world. And the world is passing away. It's being blown away and will be blown away just as the chaff. But the things of God last forever. The hymnist captured well the futility of following the way of the world and seeking one's identity and satisfaction from the things of the world when he penned these words. Fading is the worldling's pleasure, all his boasted pomp and show, but solid joys and lasting treasures, none but Zion's children know. And finally, there's a third contrast in this psalm, and that is the destinies of the two. We read in verses 5 and 6, therefore the wicked will not stand in judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. The wicked will not stand in judgment, and the wicked will perish for their refusal to follow and to seek to glorify the God of glory and the God of grace. But did you notice in the midst of this, the Lord knows the way of the righteous? The psalmist is giving clear indication that unlike the wicked, the righteous will stand in judgment. The righteous will not perish. But how? Who among us is righteous? Who among us in and of ourselves can stand in judgment? And so from the very outset, the Psalms call us to look in faith to the person and work of Jesus Christ, who alone is our holiness, our righteousness, and our redemption, who alone can present us before the Father, faultless before that throne. And so as we come to the end of life's journey, we can know for certainty that we will stand, not in the way of the wicked, but in him, in Jesus Christ. When he shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in him be found, dressed in his righteousness alone, faultless to stand before the throne. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand.